You just hear the word cancer, but until I think it touches you, you don't really understand.
We weren't able to go out in the garden, we couldn't open our windows. You got a really strong smell of like petrol, like fumes. You would get a sore throat, you'd get a headache, you'd start feeling sick, and if you were out there too long, I started feeling dizzy.
Boris Johnson gave the green light to this development.
I've written to the council basically asking them all to resign because they're not doing anything for Southall.
I'm not going to lie right now, yeah? They're telling me I got suspected cancer.
I can't believe this is England. I can't believe this is happening in England.
This is a Great Western Railway service to London Paddington. The next station is Southall.
I've just come out of Southall railway station, a place I know very well, having used it since I was a boy. As soon as I stepped out into the pavement and crossed the road, I could taste immediately in my throat, on my tongue, in my mouth, in my nostrils, a pungent odour. The best I can do to describe it as is like a tar, like a petrol smell. It's so palpable you can actually taste it. It begins to make you feel a little bit sick within a matter of 30 seconds of breathing in the air. And I cannot imagine how people who live in this area, day in, day out, have to put up with this smell.
In 2017, when they first started digging the soil, and plus I think they were demolishing properties around. We used to get some smell, but it wasn't as pungent as 2018 when it actually was the peak. Because last year we weren't able to open our windows or sit in our gardens throughout the whole summer.
The smell which was coming inside was like petrol, or some have described it as tyres burning, things like that. I distinctly smelt the petrol odours, like standing next to a petrol when you're filling up your car at a petrol station, that sort of smell. And it is quite strong. My wife actually smelt it once, it was really bad. And she just opened the window upstairs and she goes, "This is strange, there's a bad smell coming in." And we came downstairs thinking it might have been just the upstairs, but it was downstairs as well. When she opened the front door, she goes, "It's everywhere."
I noticed probably about 2017 that we were getting a really strong smell in the garden and in the house. At first we thought it was FM Conway, which is also in the vicinity, but then we soon realised it couldn't have been that because the wind wasn't in the right direction. Personally, we weren't able to go out in the garden, we couldn't open our windows. You got a really strong smell of like petrol, like fumes. You would get a sore throat, you'd get a headache, you'd start feeling sick, and if you were out there too long, I started feeling dizzy. But I didn't put two and two together what it could have been.
I mean, the problem is it's an old gasworks site, so the soil itself is contaminated already. So in order to purify that soil, you're going to have to use, you'll have to use chemicals of some sort which you shouldn't be using in the first place in order for it to be habitable for people. And that was where the problem started from, because they've always wanted to do something on this gasworks site. I mean, years ago it was just a car park, essentially. It was for, I think it was Purple Parking who used that site. And for years the council, I'm sure Berkeley Group, they wanted to build on this land because they saw this as an opportunity. It was a big project. It was a money-making project. That's what they saw.
Back in the mid-2000s, when the first attempt was made to develop this contaminated land, there was a community-wide campaign, part of which was involving the school, which I was chair of governors of at the time. that was Beaconsfield School, just around the corner from here, where the children, and we were concerned about their health and welfare, the children were directly on the front line of this development. And so this collective campaign within the community against this land being developed gathered a great deal of force. And in the end, Ealing Council agreed with us that they would not grant planning permission. However, in 2010, the then owners of the land, Castlemore, decided to appeal the refusal of planning permission by Ealing Council directly to the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson then held a meeting at the GLA, which I attended and at which I made a number of submissions to him about the impact that this development would have on local health and upon the local environment. He completely swept aside those objections. He was supremely disinterested in what the suffering would be of local people here. Ordinary, working class, humble people who had no means to fight on their own, not middle class people living in salubrious, affluent areas who would have the sort of network and connections to be able to mount a fight and a challenge. Boris Johnson gave the green light to this development. And so it was that from 2010, Castlemore, who had had permission to develop here, decided that they would then flog the land to Berkeley Homes at a cheap price. And when Berkeley took it over, they started to remediate the land in 2017. So the soil which had to be turned in order to prepare the land for building released the most horrible chemicals, some of which are carcinogenic, benzene, naphthalene, cyanide, arsenic, all of which has been wafting through the air depending upon the direction that the wind is blowing. And it's been going into people's homes, their gardens, their front rooms, their bedrooms, everywhere, wherever the wind would take it. And the symptoms that people have been complaining of are really serious. Dizziness, coughing, chest tightness, breathing problems, nausea, sense of faintness, people having sore throats. Many of them report that those are symptoms that they never experienced before. And so they can't help but imagine it must be in consequence of the foul air and odour which has been blown in their direction.
When I went to see the hospital, I had to end up at Moorfields Hospital and also at the emergency eye centre in Marylebone. And but like I said, I didn't put two and two together at that time, but I was getting really sore eyes and everything, and then eventually it came down that I had to be put on steroids, which I'm still on now, to control the inflammation in my eyes. And it's only afterwards that I thought, you know, this has just happened since the development started. And, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that it's because of that.
My mother was complaining of being out of breath as well. So we went to the local GP and had x-rays because there was no other symptoms. And then it came back that they found a shadow in her lung, on top of her lung. So she had tests and they found out that she had cancer that had started in her airways. And this was in October 2017, and she died in January 2018. It was about 9 or 10 months later that I thought, well, could this have exasperated it, you know, if you know, she couldn't have her bedroom windows open. I've got a friend who lives just the road opposite, and she said the same, that since she's been at home, she got made redundant in November last year, that she's now getting the same problems with breathing and palpitations, and is ongoing tests as well.
Last year my sister visited us and spent well over 6 months with us here. And when she arrived, she said she was complaining about the smell quite a bit. She even rang the council on several occasions. And when she left, I think she left end of July. And then she rang me to tell me that she's got cancer. And I first didn't believe it. I just thought, no, she's not, she cannot. I had to check with her partner, and he confirmed, no, she does have cancer, and it's bone cancer that she has. In January, my father went to just have a CT scan for a different condition. We got told that my father's got a mass in his spine, and I just couldn't believe that 2 family members within, say, 6 months of each other, they both got cancer. I just, we're still in shock because you just hear the word cancer, but until I think it touches you, you don't really understand.
About 18 months ago to nearly 2 years, I was finding it difficult to walk in Southall, and I didn't know what the cause was. I couldn't walk more than about 100 yards without stopping, and my chest was exploding. It was red. I couldn't breathe. I had to stop for a few minutes and then continue walking. And I didn't know what it was. I went to the doctors. They said it's asthma related, so they gave me the asthma pumps. It wasn't asthma. And the way I found that out was I went on holiday last year to Corsica, and it's all clean air. It's a small little island. And after about 2 days, I could feel the difference of breathing in clean air, fresh air. And my daughter took me to climb mountains, and we were climbing mountains. And we stayed there for 7 days. I had no issues whatsoever. When I came back to Southall after 7-8 days, after 2 days I was back to square one, where I couldn't breathe properly. Walking was difficult. And we couldn't open the windows at times at home because the smell was coming inside. And that's after that I found a group called CASH, Clean Air for Southall and Hayes, and I got involved with them. And it's through them that I discovered that the problem was the air quality and the air pollution that was coming from Southall Gasworks.
So, how close it is to people's properties and the school? This is the site. Yeah.
Because of the concerns that have been expressed by the local community and their outrage at how they're being treated as human beings, many of whom one has to bear in mind in an area like Southall are people who come from the black and minority ethnic communities, and it's been demonstrated scientifically that some of these chemicals which are afflicting them have a disproportionately bad impact on people of colour. And therefore there's a racial discrimination aspect to all of this which simply hasn't been considered properly by the statutory agencies. So it is that the local people, through the organisation CASH, have decided that they wish to mount a legal challenge, which I have taken responsibility for helping them on. And I am not, in fact, underestimating or underrepresenting how strongly people feel. There was a public meeting on the 10th of July in the biggest community centre that we have here in Southall, attended by about 300 ordinary people who were affected by this odour. And those people were literally shouting and screaming to Berkeley Homes, to the Environment Agency, to Public Health England, and to Ealing Council, whose representatives were lined up on a table at the front of the hall, saying to them, why aren't you listening to us when we tell you that we are slowly being poisoned by this land? And you fold your arms, you nod sympathetically, and you simply tell us it's all fine because you claim that the data that you've collected, paid for by Berkeley Homes themselves, indicates that the level of pollution in the air is acceptable.
We've been to Verinder Sharma's office. He's not treated us right, or he hasn't really taken on board some of the issues that we raised with him. He said he would contact us. He hasn't. He promised to speak up at the public meeting that we had. He conveniently cancelled but did turn up, and he sat right at the back and listened to the residents complain, but not once opened his mouth to say that I understand what the residents are going through. It's like, he's voted in, but he's got nothing to do with the Southall residents, which is a great shame.
I've contacted the council a number of times. I've complained about the smell. I've told them my symptoms. They send people out and they say, oh yeah, we can smell it, and then that's about it. I've written to the council 3-4 times, to all the councillors. Initially I was getting some responses, all of them denying that there was any problems. I've sent them 2 emails in the last 2 months, basically asking them all to resign because they're not doing anything for Southall. I've written to Julian Bell and asked him why is it that he's still backing Berkeley Homes and why is he taking free holidays from Berkeley Homes. He hasn't replied. That man really needs to get his act together because he emailed me about 2 years ago when I first emailed him about the problems I was facing, and his reply in the email back to me was the need for more housing outweighs the small short-term health problems people are facing in Southall.
Some of the councillors have tried to do something, but again there's people above them that are sort of stopping any further help, towards us. I mean, some of the councillors have said that they would like air monitors as well, but again it's the powers above them that are sort of stopping that happening. And also that Berkeley did provide, or supposed to have provided, the council with a large amount of money to provide air quality monitors around the area, but this never came to fruit either.
I can't believe this is England. I can't believe this is happening in England, honestly. And in Southall this is happening. It doesn't sink in. I can't believe really this is happening, and I do hope and I pray to God that something is dealt with it very quickly, because otherwise we are not in any position to sell the house yet.
I've lived here 49 years, and why should I have to move because of this development? This development's going to be going on till 2028, 38. Does this mean every time they move the soil we're going to have a problem? We keep being told by Ealing Council that the remediation work is finished. So why is it still smelling? That's my question.
We need an independent body to actually look into this. We can't have someone that's associated with the council or with Berkeley Group, or with anyone who's associated with this project. It has to be someone outside who can actually deliver the facts and look at exactly what they've been doing, what Berkeley Group been doing, and then come to a conclusion and say, these are the facts, this is what's actually happening.
I was born in this area. I was raised in this area and I went to school here. This town of Southall has deep sentimental importance to me, and I live only a few miles away now. And when I come back and visit my mother in her home and see her coughing and spluttering and choking because she cannot breathe because of this air, and she who lives in a house that she's deeply attached to and doesn't want to leave, and why should she? We cannot simply stand by and allow people like her to suffer in the way that they do. We appeal to everyone out there, all of those who are involved in environmental work, everyone from the political parties who have environmental policies which are designed to support communities rather than to hurt them, to all the individual NGOs and environmental groups who have been around for a long time. We appeal to all of you. Join with us. Come to Southall. Breathe this air and understand how intolerable it is for those who have to live here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Support us in our campaign. Support us to raise funds in order to be able to mount this legal challenge and be part of a movement which is growing across the country and growing across the globe for protecting our environment so that our children have somewhere where they can live without having human flight from areas which are so poisoned, leaving only those who have no means to escape to continue to ingest all of the things that we know are doing harm to us as a race. So join with us as soon as you can. We need your help. Okay, you see this land here?
Yeah.
You see behind that castle?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's 88 acres that's being developed by a private company, which is a very rich company called Berkeley Homes.
Okay. What are they doing there?
They are building 3,750 new homes.
Okay.
And-
And the people, it's not safe for them.
It's not safe.
Like right now, yeah. They're telling me I got suspected cancer.
No.
Seriously.
Yeah.
No.
I've been going to do ultrasound and all that.
When did it develop?
Scans. The last couple of months.
So sorry.
So,
Okay,
no,
I'm really,
I
really
don't have
sorry
it
to
yet.
hear that.
going
I'm very
by it.
sorry.
So if this is it,
New
how
homes.
can I help?
If you can help by joining the campaign
Okay.
for clean air in Southall,
Yeah.
we will get you involved. We want as many people in the